State Auditor Rob Sand, running for governor. Thanks for being with us today. Really appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me, Dana.
Okay, so we're kicking off. I mean, you've been in the campaign for a little bit while now. Kind of want to just start by asking, how are you feeling?
I started by saying I've never worked harder and I've never had more energy, and I've shortened that to I have never worked harder.
There you go. That's cool right there. I love it. That's awesome.
Yeah, but still, I think some of that is just, it's Iowa. We're coming out of winter. The days are getting longer. Spring is springing out there. The birds are chirping this morning. So I think a lot of that is just kind of like coming out of winter. And I'm excited to actually, now that the weather is more reliable, get out there and start talking to Iowans again. As state auditor, I've always done 100 public town halls every year. We did that last year. We will do it again this year. We will announce all 100 the same day. So it's going to be date and time. This is when we're in your county. And if you sign up, when we see how many people are coming, we'll figure out how big a space we need. But that'll give me a lot of energy. I like being out there and talking to people. I like answering their questions, hearing from them what they're concerned about, that kind of thing. So I'm really enjoying the process so far. And I just think, I think we're really at a crossroads here in the state of Iowa. Pretty simple. We've averaged 48th for personal income growth over 3 years. We're number one for cancer growth. And in the Capitol building, they're figuring out how to make it harder for the state auditor's office to find tax dollars they've misspent. Just out of touch with the public, and I think they're serving insiders and special interest groups, not serving Iowans, and I think we need to change that.
So what exactly drove you to run for governor now?
Honestly, a huge piece of it was the fact that they made it so that state agencies can hide misspent money and hide documentation showing it from the auditor's office. I ran in 2018, so prior to that I had spent 7 years in the Attorney General's office, chief public corruption prosecutor, uncovered the largest lottery rigging scheme in American history, prosecuted the Iowa Film Office tax credit cases, liked the work that I was doing, but also hit the point where I was ready to do something a little bit different and maybe have a bit more of a positive impact. I had worked a lot with the auditor's office. They do Iowa's public corruption investigations, so I decided I knew some improvements that could be done to make those investigations ready for a courtroom. I wanted to create an efficiency program that would help save tax dollars every day to have more of a positive impact. I ran, I won. We uncovered a record amount of misspent money in my first term. My senior leadership team, Democrat, Independent, Republican, included people that had made campaign contributions to my opponent. And after we uncovered all that misspent money and we created a government efficiency program that was copied elsewhere, they then changed the law in my second term to make it harder for us to find misspent money. That told me two things. Number one, I don't want a third term as state auditor with this law in place, because I'm here not to hold a title, but to make a difference. And if they're telling us where we can look, it's not much of an audit anymore. And number two, it just clarified to me just how far gone our present leadership is in terms of focusing on the problems that Iowans face. And this to me is something that I've always been a big believer in. I do not like politics. I don't like political parties. I was a registered independent when I first registered to vote. I think we should all be acknowledging that our democracy is basically run by two private clubs, neither of which do a very good job of solving our problems. And that the system really is designed to help politicians get reelected rather than to force them to address the issues that we're facing.
And you are in a primary up against, you're the only Democratic candidate. You're up against a crowded Republican field. What does that mean for your campaign? Does anything change for your campaign now?
No, we've been kind of running our sights set on the general election the whole way through. I think most Iowans look around and they're ready for change. I think no matter who comes out on the other side, they're going to be saying the same things and trying to distract Iowans from what's in front of them every single day. You know, a state that is 50th for economic growth, a state that is number one for cancer growth, an education system that's in the middle of the pack. This is all because the folks who are in charge have been using this two-choice political system to try to demonize their opponents while they instead actually serve insiders and special interest groups. To me, the easiest example of this is that the company that runs the state school voucher program, they literally amended the contract for that company to double their take of tax dollars just months after having signed it. It didn't go through the ordinary process for approvals. It just went straight to the director of the Department of Education. She doubles their pay, nothing in return for taxpayers, right? I doubt you've ever asked your boss to double your paycheck. Not a lot of people have. I don't think it would go well. It's not a thing that happens. But that's what the people who are running the state of Iowa right now are happy to do for people who are taking our tax dollars. Iowans, I think, are getting short shrift here, and it's time that change.
So you say, you don't really run on a political party, essentially. You're running as a Democratic candidate. How do you ensure to Iowans that, you don't really have a political side in this race, I guess, even though you are running as a Democrat?
To me, this is pretty simple. If you've ever been in the ballot booth and you've understood that, if I vote for this independent candidate, I'm kind of throwing my vote away and it's going to help the person that I like less win the race, it'd be the same thing with my candidacy. I want us to be able to have third parties and fourth parties that can win. I think that a two-choice political system really is a way to control us more than it is a way to solve our problems. And neither party does a very good job of solving our problems. But until we actually have candidates who are willing to say that, to say it to people in their own party, and to run to change that system, to reform it from the ground up, you'd still otherwise be stuck in that sort of like, well, if it's a three-way race, then this person over here is going to win. And we've sort of got to play by the rules that we have right now in order to change them.
And the Cook Political Report just came out actually today, earlier this morning, ruling Iowa's governor's race a toss-up.
Yeah.
What was your reaction to that?
I'm delighted that they're catching up. They're getting warmer, Dana. They're moving in the right direction. This wasn't in their write-up, but I think it's very indicative of where we are. Last year, we actually had more registered Iowa Republicans donate to our campaign for governor than any of the Republican candidates had donors. People in this state are fed up. They recognize that my approach to politics is not Democratic or Republican. I mean, our campaign slogan literally is not redder or bluer, but better and truer. And they want someone that they think is going to try to shake it up, work with anyone to get something done, but not just sit there and be the same kind of politician that makes promises that they can't keep. I think people are ready for change, and they've been watching me do this job for 8 years already. And my job approval numbers in the office have been the best in the state by 30 points. I go around every single year. I'm in every county. I give people advance notice that they can show up. I'll take compliments or I'll take criticism. It doesn't matter. People have an opportunity. They should have an opportunity to hold elected officials and candidates accountable and to be able to ask them questions on the things that are on their mind. I think that's important, and I'm willing to do it in a way that pretty much nobody else is.
And you recently unveiled your Accountability for All priorities.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit, I guess we'll dive deeper into the priorities and topics, but just to start off on how you got to these priorities. Tell me just about the mindset behind them and how you came down to these specific ones.
This to me comes down to a lot of the same stuff that we've touched on. Iowans are facing an affordability crisis, a water quality crisis, a personal income crisis, a cancer crisis. These things are all related in the sense that all of them are as bad as they are because our structure of our system isn't solving problems. It's serving insiders and special interest groups. Most Iowans work hard, they play by the rules, they think politicians should have to do the same thing. They think that holding office should be about public service, not about politics. That is exactly what we want to talk about with these things. It is stuff that has a really broad appeal that the vast majority of Iowans do. And it's right down the line of what I've been doing for 15 years, right? 7 terms as the chief public corruption prosecutor, 2 terms as state auditor. People in positions of trust and power need to be held accountable. They need to have rules. A lot of this for me comes down to my faith is a huge motivator in my life. And I oftentimes recall the story of Jesus flipping the tables at the money changers at the temple, because these were people in a position of power and trust who were using it to enrich themselves. We should have term limits. If you're someone who has access to public money and you steal from the public, you should go to prison. We should have age limits. We should have cognitive tests. You shouldn't be able to trade stocks if you're in public office, right? We shouldn't have taxpayer money going to closed primary elections for 2 private clubs. That's what the Democratic and Republican parties really are. They're private clubs. We should have a single public primary that everybody's on. We should advance more than 2 options so that we don't have the lesser of 2 evils when that's over. If we made these changes, then the problems that we face in terms of rising costs, making ends meet, cleaning up our water, we could get those problems solved more easily because the people whose job it is to solve them wouldn't just be able to demonize the only other option on the ballot in order to get reelected. They'd actually have to serve us.
And you have a handful of priorities you just listed off on that list, things like the stock trading.
Yeah.
State leaders banning them from stock trading, requirements for elected officials, a civics test, for example, term limits, et cetera. Why are a lot of these priorities focused so far, why are they focused on essentially top down? Where did that kind of come from?
Again, it's that same story of Jesus flipping the tables of the money changers. There's a central, I think, a very good 6-word description of the Christian faith. It's comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable. There's a lot of people that are very comfortable in politics right now, and I think we need to give them a little bit of a goose to remind them why they're here. And if they don't like that, then they shouldn't be here.
I want to ask, if you are elected, you still could face a bit of an uphill battle if the House and the Senate do stay Republican. How do you plan to navigate that?
Number one, they will. I mean, the Republican Party in the Iowa State House here has large majorities in both chambers. I have said repeatedly, I said it 100 times in our town halls last year, I will be working with a Republican legislature if I win. 2 things. Number one, that means balance, right? Every budget that gets passed, every law that gets passed is going to have to be something that both parties can agree on. I think that's what the vast majority of Iowans want. They can get it if they have me as governor because it will have to be things that a bill that they pass that I would then sign. And if it's a bill that they pass that's out there in left field, looking out for special interest groups or doing who knows what that just some little group wants, then I'm not going to sign it. And that's going to help the legislature focus on addressing issues that the vast majority of people support. That's what these issues on accountability are. They are issues that the vast majority of Iowans can support that I think that we can work together to actually implement in the state of Iowa.
I want to ask you your stance on the school voucher program. I'm sure you've been asked about it a lot. It's in your priorities. Yeah. For you wanting to kind of just go readjust this school voucher program, how would you navigate that after, it's already been implemented and it's already very much, a hot topic here across the state?
Look, I think this is pretty straightforward. Again, there should be accountability. This is another piece of our accountability plan. You should have to get audits if you're taking public money. That should be a requirement. We should be able to see where our tax dollars are going and how they're getting spent. You should have to take the public. If you're going to take public money, you should have to accept the public, not turn some students away. Glad to see that some of the candidates on the other side are now adopting this position that I've been advocating for nearly a year. And we should have actual rules for how the money gets spent. Right now, there's only one thing on God's green earth that private schools are not allowed to spend money on. They can't pay a rebate, so to the parent whose kids are coming there. But anything else, that money is required to get paid as tuition. It's actually not allowed to be used for anything until tuition is fully paid. And once tuition is paid, if they want to spend it on booze, they can spend it on booze. Public school would get in trouble for that. If they want to put it in their pocket as profit, a private school can do that. A public school can't do that. If they wanted to buy expensive leather furniture, a private school can do that with your tax dollars right now. A public school can't do that. The same things that would get you in trouble at a public school should get you in trouble at a private school. Again, these are things that I think the vast majority of Iowans can actually agree on. And if I'm advocating for that, then I would hope that the legislature would be willing to do that. If they're not willing to do it, then as governor, I'd use the bully pulpit to be traveling around the state, doing 100 public town halls, as I always do, going to every county and talking about whether or not the people who are representing that county are willing to agree to do these things that the vast majority of Iowans want to see happen.
I want to also ask about the strengthening the whistleblower protections in your Accountability for All plan. Where did that come from, I guess? Is that something that, you've seen problems of this in the past?
Absolutely.
And kind of what has that looked like, and why is this such an important topic for you?
We have actually been willing to be dragged into court in the auditor's office in order to protect whistleblowers, but it shouldn't come to that. It should be absolutely clear that people who are whistleblowers, you can't just sort of pick and choose or say the magic words in order to try to get that information. We've got to make sure that people who know where there is wrongdoing feel fully comfortable and protected reporting that wrongdoing, because that is always the number one way that we can figure out what's going on and hold people accountable for it. One good example of that, and this is just one. one of the ways that we can start a re-audit or a special investigation is if people submit a petition with 100 signatures on it from people in their school district. Right now, we have had to fight off people who maybe are on the school board, or might be it's the superintendent, and they say, hey, I want to see the petition. I want that to be, I'm telling you, that's a public record, you should give it to me. I want to see all the names on that petition. Anybody who's lived in a small town knows you don't want to put your name on a petition complaining about an issue if the people who are in charge are going to be able to find that out. We have taken the stance that we shouldn't turn that over, but that should be clearer in the law. It shouldn't be us taking the stance. It should be abundantly clear that that is the case.
And two topics that, there have been different polls and reports that have shown that for Iowans, water quality and Iowa's rising cancer rates are two topics that Iowa voters are almost care the most about, arguably. Some of the polls have shown they are number 1 and 2 for a lot of people. How would you plan to address that?
Well, these issues are very much intertwined, right? There's things that we know that we should be addressing in places where they're the most clear, right? We are the worst state in the country for radon. Radon is the second leading cause of lung cancer. We should be doing something about that, right? We should be pointing out we are one of the top states. I think we might be number 2 for alcohol consumption. We're not Wisconsin, but we're close, right? And so we should be talking about that. But it is bigger than that, and we should be worried about water quality in this state. We've had record beach closures. I grew up in Decorah, and then I think, one of the best parts of the state for outdoor recreation. We would be tubing, we'd be trout fishing, all kinds of fun in the water. And now, my boys are 9 and 12, and you got to read about beach closures across the state before you decide whether or not you can go to a state park to have fun. I think that's wrong. And I think Iowans deserve better than that. The things that we need to keep in mind is that politicians are the people who have made it this bad. Here's what I'm talking about. Every year, conservation programs to help farmers do a better job with conservation have more farmers sign up than politicians are willing to fund it for. So farmers want to do better. They know they can do better, but at the same time, they're also at the same time trying to run a business, and they're trying to make ends meet. And I talked to a farmer just 2 weeks ago who said, I used to do cover crops. I had a cost share program that I was participating in. I was losing money doing it, but it made me lose less, so I thought it was doable as it was the right thing to do. But then they lost that program and said, well, I can lose some money doing it, but I can't lose that much. If we want to improve water quality in the state of Iowa, the way to do that is with farmers. And I do think we want to improve it, and I think they do too.
A lot of the research and programs that the state is currently doing right now, for example, I know there was recently a phase 1 presentation with the University of Iowa, their medical school out there doing research, and that was presented to the legislature. Is that something you would continue with that research and funding that research?
Yeah, on cancer.
Yes,
absolutely.
Sorry, on cancer
So this is very simple to me. We actually had a fundraiser recently with friends of mine whose daughter was just diagnosed with cancer. I had a good friend from north central Iowa who passed away. She had childhood cancer, and then it came back in her late 20s. And her capacity to stick with it and have a good attitude was amazing. She even actually, unfortunately, had to have her leg amputated at one point, and she went with it. The next year for Halloween, she was the leg lamp from A Christmas Story, right? Then a shark attack victim, a carrot. Iowans deserve better than these diagnoses all across the state of people who are dying and leaving us too young. Nebraska, I want to say, put $23 million into cancer research. And what we've been able to get out of the legislature last year was $1 million. This year, maybe $3 million. I'm a proud Iowan. I want to beat Nebraska. And I want people in this state to know that the people who are representing them actually want to figure out what's going on and get to the bottom of this and stop it from getting worse and stop it from happening. But we can't do that if we're not taking action about it. We should be aiming to say what Nebraska did is table stakes. We should be at least keeping up with them to do this.
So you would allocate more money towards cancer research and research to water quality?
Yeah, and funding. to improve water quality. I mean, this is again, this goes to, I think, the question of priorities. We've got a $3 billion surplus presently in the state of Iowa. We shouldn't talk about that without also noting that they're burning it off at a rate of $1 billion a year because the budget's not balanced and they've refused to balance it. They continue to increase spending without keeping revenues in check. And they're defunding a $600,000 a year water quality monitoring program. Peanuts in comparison. And they're making it so that we wouldn't know real-time input of nitrate levels around the state, which to me is creepy, honestly. I think we want to know what's in our water, and the idea that people who are supposed to represent us are making it harder for us to find out. Just one more, I guess you could say, piece of evidence on the pile of things that says it's time to throw them out.
And you talk a lot about accountability. That's in, your accountability for all priorities. You use the word accountability a lot, and holding people accountable, specifically politicians. If elected as governor, how would you allow Iowans to hold you accountable in that role?
I'm glad you asked. 100 public town halls every year. Same story as I have always done in 8 years, advanced public notice. I think a lot of Iowans have become accustomed to this very cynical appearance in each county every year. They will tell 8 people the night before, hey, we're going to be at Hardee's tomorrow morning for breakfast at 8 a.m. And they'll pop in and they'll be there for half an hour. They'll take some pictures and they'll disappear before anybody else knows that they were there other than those 8 people. If you're doing that, who are you here for? What is this about to you? I mean, to me, this isn't complicated. If I'm serving the public, then the public should have a chance to give me a job review. And if they don't like what I'm doing, then I might need to hear about that. Maybe it'll help me do a better job. Maybe someone will say something that I haven't thought about because, I'm doing my job every day and it's hard to get out there and talk to enough people. If you give them a chance to be involved, if you give them a chance to ask you questions, if you give them a chance to hold you accountable, that can be good for everybody. And that would be my commitment. Every single county, every year, you're going to know well in advance what day and what time. And if you can be there, great. But if you can't, send your friend, have them ask the same question. That to me is a level of public service that I think should be mandatory, actually. If you're going to be in elected office in the state of Iowa, you should have to do public town halls with advance notice. I think that fewer politicians of either party would do things that they know are obviously wrong if they knew they were going to have to face questions about it from ordinary people.
I want to ask about the bill that was introduced in the legislature this year that would limit the governor's powers. When you heard about that, what was your initial reaction?
Here we go again. Right? I mean, this is what they did in 2023. I get reelected as state auditor with support from Democrats, Independents, and Republicans, having held people from both parties accountable in the work that I do. And they come in and they say, let's make it so the state auditor's office can't really audit anymore, right? And I want to be clear about this, Dana. Every single government watchdog in America that weighed in on this law, because it was a scandal at the time for accountants and auditors, said the same thing. This is going to lead to an increase in waste, fraud, and abuse of tax dollars in Iowa. They passed that into law. So when all of a sudden they're saying, they're going to weaken the powers of the next governor, my first reaction is, we're going to do that again, huh? They're going to do that again. To me, the idea, and this is one of the bills, it's so plainly obvious what's happening. They want to make it so they continue with last year's budget. Even though the people of Iowa have spoken, they have said, we want a new direction, we're giving you a new governor, they want to be able to say, we're just going to use the bill that we passed for the budget from last year with the previous governor, even though you picked a new direction. Remember we talked about the contract that Odyssey holds that runs the private school vouchers program and how they got their pay doubled? I wouldn't be able to have much of an impact on that if I was governor if they passed this law. Now the people who are running it are claiming, we don't want government shutdowns. We've never had any here in Iowa, have we? Well, they happen out in D.C. They've been happening in D.C. for decades, haven't they? The idea that they think that Iowans are foolish enough to fall for that kind of a claim to me is, I guess, surprising. It's painfully obvious, I think, that they're scared of what's coming. They don't want accountability. And they see Democrats, Independents, and Republicans jumping on board this campaign to get a new direction, and they don't want it. They want to literally bake in those favors for special interest groups. They want to bake in those favors for insiders. It's a terrible idea, and it shouldn't be the law.
As we go forward in the campaign into, the primaries as well as, the midterm elections, which I know you said it's always been focused on the midterm elections, how do you approach to Iowans? What's your approach, I guess, on why this time is different? People hear political parties and have their opinions on different parties. You're running as somebody who, you're saying that you're for everybody. How do you just assure that you are for everybody and that change will happen?
I guess to me, this is my third campaign and they've all been the same. And so to me this time, it's kind of doing the same thing. I'm running as myself, a person who's open about my dislike for the corruption in our political system, the way it's been perverted to serve special interest groups and insiders. And I've won both of those other races. That's why I think this one is going to be the same. I want to give a deeper answer to your question, though, too. We did 100 public town halls last year. At every one of them, we asked people to raise their hand for whichever party they belonged to and had everyone else who's not in their party applaud them for being in the room together. So we're first acknowledging that we disagree, that we belong to different parties. And then to point out that actually we can work together, we had everyone join together to sing America the Beautiful. Just the first verse, it's the one we all know the words for. But I think it gives people a sense of the idea that we can actually disagree and still work together. And I don't think that there's really been very many people running for office for a long time who have been inviting Iowans to do that. It's overdue. I cannot stand the level of anger and bile and venom in politics right now. But again, to me, it all comes from this broken two-choice system. Politicians and their consultants have figured out solving problems is hard. What do you do with a water quality crisis? Mental health crisis? These things are complicated. You're going to have to sit down and have a lot of meetings, and you're going to have to compromise and build consensus. That'll take time. Our political system lets people get reelected by doing none of that as long as they demonize the only other option on the ballot. If we change that and force them to actually work together to get elected, these problems will begin to melt away.
What am I not asking you about that you want to touch on before we wrap up the interview?
Great question. You asked, we're having a lot of fun in this campaign. I think that a lot of this stuff is rooted in, to me, my sense of fairness and my sense of the idea that government should be serving ordinary people, not special interest groups. And some of my favorite moments in this campaign have been talking to people whose families have been divided by politics recently, who have a hard time sitting down for Thanksgiving or for supper. And recently, a guy who said, I met him. He had been talking about how he couldn't talk with his parents about anything related to politics. And I said, introduced myself, said I'd be curious to hear what they think of our campaign. He was like, there's no chance. They'll never be supportive of you. You're a Democrat. I got a message from him a couple days later. I asked my dad about you. He donated to your campaign last year. The idea that politics could actually bring families together where it has ripped them apart, to me, is a higher purpose that we're serving every day in trying to do this for Iowans.
Awesome. Well, State Auditor Rob Sand, thank you for joining us today. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Dana.